Hello, and welcome once again to Escaping Dystopia. My name is Wah. I'll be your host for the night. Today is episode 130. Open corruption. It's so stupid. May 20th, 2025. This is a phrase that keeps coming up in my household all the time when we discuss the news, and it's so stupid. What they're doing is so obviously dumb and bad. But our media is broken and people don't know about it. And so the cynicism and dismissiveness, it's going to make this last a lot longer than it should. Anyway, this episode tonight is entitled Open Corruption. It's so stupid. Our top story in that regard is this jet. President came back from his trip to the Middle East. By the way, Israel continues to bomb and starve all of Gaza. There was a ceasefire, remember, that Biden actually negotiated. Donald took credit for and then did nothing to enforce, and that hasn't been going on for a while. So there's massive death and destruction. Netanyahu is now at the point where he's going to let in a few little bits of food to stave off massive starvation. Anyway, that wasn't supposed to be the first story, but it's about Qatar Force One, right? Because Qatar wanted to give Donald this $400 million palace in the sky, as he says. Obviously, this is wildly corrupt. You can't do this kind of stuff legally, normally. He got the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, who's previous client before she was appointed was Qatar, to say, oh yeah, no, this is fine. This is really the breakdown of the rule of law here in the United States. This is a good example of it, like the open corruption, just wildly open. I'm going to take this huge jet. The way that the press has responded, the way that the administration has responded to this wildly open, unquestionable corruption. The New York Times was like, well, maybe that's not a bribe per se. Does anybody point to anything that Qatar asked for? And it's kind of one of those things that's, so in Colorado where I am, the limit for gifts to public officials is $75, right? And less than basically an hour of labor for professional level workers. That's it. And so when you have this, again, Donald isn't worth $400 million, right? At this point in his life. And so having this kind of gift from somebody who's so incredibly wealthy, so obviously corrupt. So they're also doing this thing the next couple of days with the top 100 or something holders of his crypto coin are going to meet at a dinner at his resort. This is, again, one of the easiest ways to funnel money to an organization. The one thing that I will say, they're actually passing this bill in Congress. For those of you who are not familiar with my background in this, I actually do know a lot of math and have a lot of respect for mathematics. That's why I do enjoy using crypto, just based on cryptography, which is a branch of mathematics that creates digital scarcity. And then also I enjoy my AI stuff, which again, whole lot of math. This math divide on the left and right is really starting to scare me personally, because if you watch any of my shows, you probably have a sense of the reality that I experience and portray. But also I like math a lot. So the crypto bill, they put this bill out to basically legalize certain forms of cryptocurrencies. Donald's coin is, again, so this is one of the things that most people don't understand about this, is all of these blockchains are public. The top holders of his coin, the accounts are public information, but it's pseudo-anonymous, right? They are controlled by an entity. Who that entity is detached from the actual network itself. This is where legal repercussions come in, and knowing who those 100 people are and tying them to those addresses lets you know exactly who else they've been doing business with and sending money to. This is one of the things about blockchains that make it so bad for criming, and the public perception of this versus the reality is one of those massive disconnects in technology that just kind of leaves me fairly disheartened, right? Because I'm talking about public information and doing these kind of shows to let people know. And if we don't have an informed public that understands how certain technologies work and don't work, it's much harder to make good public policy about those those issues. So personally, I'm fine with this genius bill. We'll see how it plays out. I know a lot of people on the left and Democrats are not, and I find that terribly unfortunate. But, and that was one of the bigger things I would say about this last election than Joe Biden's oldness. But anyway, so our battle with the Houthis, moving on real quick, because this happened kind of quick and then went away. And this has been the news over the last few weeks. We've lost multiple F-18 aircraft into the Red Sea that have fallen off. It's like 7 or 8 Reaper drones. We've shot an absolute shitload of high precision ordnance and then also some not so high precision ordnance, which has killed, I think, in the neighborhood of 150, 200 people now in this battle against the Houthis. We've declared victory, I think, 3 times now. Donald already has, but it continues. This will continue to simmer, these kind of things where this open fighting. Again, we have a completely incompetent Secretary of Defense, and the authority structure now in the U.S. government is crumbling. So these kind of things happening all around the world is going to continue to spiral quite a bit. Speaking of which, the tariff absurdity. So Donald has backed off his massive, ridiculous tariffs, and now we're just back down to stupid, dumb tariffs. The ports are still basically empty for stuff coming over as China because 90 days isn't enough time for people really understand things. And currently, the U.S. position and China position are pretty far apart. Also, China understands how absolutely idiotically stupid Donald is and is planning to rake him over the coals for it. Donald just wants to declare victory and everybody to praise him. That's kind of his only thing. He's not all the way there mentally. So the tariff thing is going horribly. The U.S. economy is essentially, again, in free fall right now. People are about to feel it. We're a few weeks away from there being a lot of really conspicuously empty store shelves and prices that have gone up tremendously. The stock market and things, I didn't have that on here, but I will mention it on the tariff battle. Oh, and I need to talk about this too because they're about to pass this bill. In addition to the tariffs destroying the U.S. economy, we also have this GOP deficit-funded tax cut bill. They are planning on adding trillions of dollars to our debt based on complete and utter BS. It is a massive, massive tax cut for the wealthy and actually a tax increase for the lower 20%. And they're going to push it through. I'm guessing by the time I do another show, this will have become law for the United States. This will again decimate all of our rural hospitals, which are already hurting, rural schools. The disconnect between these people in the rural communities and the Republicans that they elect is going to be very, very stark. And I don't know how much hatred for minorities will cover for it. Their bigotry towards trans folks has gotten them a few years of cover, but that has been a few years of cover in a wonderful economy that Joe Biden helped create. Absolutely crap hole economy filled with stupidity and BS is not going to cover for this. And so I think that's one of the reasons why the GOP's social focus and hatred things work so well is because the economy was good enough so people could go up that Maslow's hierarchy of needs and find something to take issue with, not realizing that the reason why they could do that is because they had decent people making smart decisions the whole way down. Decimation for U.S. science is something that I really don't think has quite been felt for a lot of folks, and our media is not very good at communicating what's going on with that either. We've had one deal, so they're supposed to have like 90 deals in 90 days. We've had one deal that they've kind of signed, which was just the idea of we'd like to have a deal with the UK, right? Who's the only other country that has perhaps done something dumber than we have, which with their Brexit versus us electing a bankrupt rapist felon. That deal was with a country we had a surplus with, a trade surplus. Again, one of the things that's so stupid about this whole tariff BS is Donald keeps conflating the difference between a budget surplus and a budget deficit and a trade deficit. And we're about to pass this massive tax cut bill based on the idea that trade deficits are what matter for a budget. And they don't. They don't at all. This notion, and he talks about this a lot, like, oh, China's ripping us off for like $1 trillion. But that's, again, and even that is with the good trades. When you look at services and everything else, these budget trade deficits go down quite a bit. The whole thing is so stupid. And so when it's so dumb, it can't end well. And I'm telling you this as somebody who watched the whole thing, talked about it leading up into 2008. It can't end well. And all of these lies, they will crush and destroy things for a decade or longer. The U.S. losing its position as the reserve currency in the world has massive negative implications for Americans. And our media doesn't do a good job talking about that kind of stuff. But it's coming. Speaking of which, Americans. So over the last 3 weeks, they announced today the Department of Justice is going to be attempting to charge a sitting member of Congress for inspecting an ICE facility. Now, Congress has, I believe, specific authority through the laws that Congress wrote to inspect the facilities that Congress is funding. And so the idea that they can be arrested for inspecting the facilities that they themselves have authorized and funded should tell you that we're in fascism land. The judge got arrested in Wisconsin. They're trying to press charges on her. She actually cited the Supreme Court's decision about how Trump had immunity in order to, in her own declaration of innocence. They're deporting Americans, although you can't deport Americans because that technically isn't possible. So you're kidnapping them and shipping them off to another country, which has happened multiple times. Usually what happens is these are spouses of folks that they've sent to El Salvador and their children, who are the American children born here, but now they're just shipping them out and shipping them. And this is happening constantly. They have, according to, I believe it was Cato, found 50 of the 250 or so Venezuelans that they had sent to El Salvador had done nothing wrong at all. They were let in here legally, followed all the rules, and just grabbed and sent. It's been so hard to deal with this kind of stuff when at the same time that this is happening, our media and our corporate media is so focused on some of the dumbest, stupid bullshit that you can possibly imagine. This Jake Tapper book that's coming out and like about Biden and going after Biden. Biden, by the way, came out and announced that he had stage 4 metastatic colon cancer, prostate cancer that had gone to his bones, which is a difficult prognosis for someone of his age and stature. And also, it's been fighting against cancer has been one of the things that he's been focused on for the last 20 years of his political career. So we'll see how he goes. And actually, I don't know. We'll see. I'll bet I'll be fighting this for another 5 years and maybe come out the other side. But pretty rough for it. But so stupid about this last little thing is Biden, after the debate, had another press conference for an hour and a half. That gets ignored. Had a number of interviews where he's talking back and forth with these folks. That gets ignored. Did all this stuff subsequent to that never really changed this really weirdly coherent opinion from what I call the really smart boys club, right? And this New York Times, Washington Post, Jake Tapper, Politico, like Axios thing, there's clearly like a signal chat or something where all these guys talk to each other, and it's all these guys, and then Barry Weiss, I guess, is part of them. But they all share the same opinions and do the same stuff. I've been watching this Biden story popping up, and I've done a couple posts about this, and it keeps showing up on my news feed in new versions of it. Like, this is when they were trying to get him to drop out of the race, which I saw another guy did this analysis. It was the most covered story that summer, right, of trying to get Biden out by the New York Times and Washington Post. So the focus on the political chattering classes, on this kind of personal level, trying to influence things, but as an objective, it's just so odd and really a broken scenario. And this is one of the reasons why the U.S. is so tuned out between our media, because it's clear they're so broken. So many of them are pushing an agenda of a small group that's very focused on a lot of money and this elite thing, and it's really snapped into focus, I think, over the last little bit as some of the resistance hasn't shown up, and you see kind of why, and like how could the media fail so horribly to inform the public about Project 2025, and then even as they start to implement it, and you see how bad the media is about informing the public and the way that they frame a lot of these direct attacks on the Constitution. Literally, the Kristi Noem, the head of Homeland Security, was testifying in Congress and didn't know what habeas corpus was. Like, just doesn't know. And there's a lot of basic, important things that so many of these folks just don't know. And that's been one of the weird assumptions along the way, that, oh, they know what they're talking about or doing this. And Donald's talking about asylum, but then he talks about insane asylums. Like, people are sending their insane people here to request asylum, not understanding that political asylum and insane asylum are different things, and talking about how a trade deficit and a budget deficit are the same things, but they're not. But it's just that word. And Donald clearly has cognitive decline, these dementia issues, but because the media claims that they never went after Biden for this, therefore they can't talk about Donald, and Donald can't make it through a conversation without saying some of the dumbest, most ridiculous, clearly dementia-driven things. And our media just goes, yeah, but what about Biden? And after a little while, at this point, again, I have to say, something seriously fucked up with our media. It's broken. And it's been one of the difficult things for me to admit, as someone who, over a lot of his adult life, has tried to get more people engaged with, the media. Like, oh no, there's good information out there. Go read it, and you can do this and do that. And now there really isn't, from a lot of this institutional direction. And that leaves it really, really difficult. Because even if someone from Gen Pop comes and is like, hey, Wah, talk to me about where I should get information from, and I'm like, well, some of this is good here, but you got to watch out for this, and I would not pay for, the New York Times or Washington Post, or, maybe find some people that you trust. And I mean, I need to come up with a better list and a much better answer to this, but that's kind of how broken it is. Like, I couldn't even recommend to someone who comes to me that they participate. Definitely do not buy cable. Do not turn on CNN as a way to get informed, because that is just, this last week again has shown that is just a dog shit place to be. Oh, and CBS News. Their president quit after 60 Minutes. The guy who ran 60 Minutes quit because all of these companies want to have mergers, and the FCC has been clear, and Donald is, again, very illegally and corruptly directly saying, if you don't kowtow to what I want, you can't do what you want as a business. This is how fascism really takes over. And because there's no real pushback, I mean, it's 5 media companies and about to be 4, maybe 2.5. That's where we're at. And it's so stupid. And it's open corruption. And that's all we got for the evening. So peace out and enjoy it. I hope you have a good week. I wish you the best. And I'll be doing another show in a while. But that's what we got for tonight. Peace out.